For database first, what we do is we take an existing Visual Studio database project and we use that database as a source for models and our context file. The trick is determining what the name of the server is that is storing the database project. So to figure that out, you're going to have to go into SQL Server Object Explorer. And if you expand SQL Server, you're going to notice you have two local DBs. So the first one is used for code first databases. And the second one, the one that has projects V13, that is used for database first. So these are database projects. And the ones in the top are the databases that were generated from code first. So you can see I've kind of highlighted the name of the database project server. And that is what we have to remember because we're going to have to enter that in as part of our command. So not only do we need to know the name of the server, but you actually have to also know the name of the database. Both of those pieces are very important. Then our next step is to create a brand new ASP.NET Core MVC project. And we do have to install Entity Framework Core, SQL Server, and Entity Framework Core tools. So after we install both of those, then we can go to the Package Manager console, and there's one command line that we need to key in. And if we key it in right, it's going to generate all of our models and context file for us. So the command is scaffold-db context, and then in double quotes, this should actually look fairly familiar because this is what we have been putting into appsettings.json. So in double quotes, we have server equals, and this is the name and location of the server storing the database file. So that would be local DB slash projects v13. Then we have a semicolon. Then we've got database equal. This is the name of the database file. So we are going to be working with Sugar Bakers DB. That is the name of the file. Then we've got trusted connection equals true. And that is the end of our string. Then you'll notice after that, we have Microsoft Entity Framework Core, SQL Server, and so that's telling us the type of SQL Server that we're using, and then we're telling it to output all of our classes into a directory called models. Okay, so this breaks everything down, but we pretty much have covered all of this in the past. Trusted connection should be true. Basically, that's telling Entity Framework it should be using your Windows authentication. So all of these little pieces are important. And assuming we specified the correct server and database file, when you're done, it should have generated all of the classes based on the tables that were in that database, and it will generate the context file for you. Now, in database first, it does not use data annotations. So where you are going to see all of those column properties is in the context file. So they will have the keys specified here. They will have all of the properties, the lengths, whether they're required or not, any constraints, All of that is done through Fluent API. So once you generate the models and you've got the context file, it is a good idea to take a look at everything. One thing that you are going to notice right off the bat is that all of the classes are partial classes. This is done on purpose because if you wanted to add to those classes, you can. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to add data annotations through additional partial classes and metadata. So we are going to be covering how to handle uh, adding the annotations if you need to make a change in some settings. Once those classes and the context file have been generated and you have reviewed them, you should update app settings.json to include that connection string. The connection string is set up pretty much the same way as you did it in code first, but your server information and database information are located right here. You are also going to have to add the dependency injection into the startup file, and that is the same as code first. And then once you finish making the changes, you're going to want to run a build to make sure you have no errors, and then you can go on and generate the controllers and views using scaffolding. One nice thing about database first is you do not need to perform migrations, okay, because the database exists. So there's no point in doing the migration, okay? So that migration step is completely eliminated. Downside to using database first. Any change to the database is going to be made in the database project itself, which means that there is a potential that you're going to end up having to do this scaffold command again, which means that the models and the context could end up being replaced. That is part of the reason they are partial classes, and you do not want to add data annotations to those directly. You will be creating separate classes for data annotations that won't get squashed if you have to rerun the scaffold command. Okay, so I will be covering that in the hands-on sections that we are going to be talking about next.